We are very fortunate in the city of Buffalo that we have an excellent police department, officers that work hard each and every day to protect and serve our community, to make Buffalo a better place, a safer place to live, work, and raise a family. Today we will hear some compelling stories of the work that our police officers and members of the community have done. Life-saving work, work to apprehend people who are doing the wrong thing in our community. So today is a very proud day as we get to honor members of the Buffalo Police Department and members of the public, and it is great to see so many members of our community turn out today and show up today to recognize the great work of the people that are being recognized and honored today. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great privilege to be able to stand here and congratulate and honor these brave women and men of the Buffalo Police Department. Some of the acts of heroism that you're going to hear about are, just at the top. These officers on a daily basis are out on the street. They're protecting our communities. They're working very hard. They're engaging with the community, and they are keeping you as safe as they possibly can. This is just one ceremony that provides some level of thank you to them. But they need to be thanked on a daily basis occasionally. But we will get to what we're here for. Again, acknowledging the officers that are here, the very good work that they do. But behind every one of these members of this department sitting right here are everybody sitting out here, their family, their friends that stand behind them. The amount of work that they do on a daily basis, the stress that they go through, what they see on a daily basis, they go home to the family, and that's the support system. So I applaud and I thank all the family members and the friends for coming here, standing behind these officers, being their support system, and please continue to be their support system when they go out every day. Thank you, and let's get to what we're here for. So on March 20th, 2023, D-District officers Carlson, McCabe, and Bridge quickly responded to a rescue call of a 36-year-old male who was unresponsive and possibly in cardiac arrest. Upon arrival, the officers found the male laying in bed, not breathing, and without a pulse. They immediately grabbed the male in unison and moved him to the floor and began to render CPR. The officers continued to do chest compressions as the fire department and ambulance arrived and hooked the male up to oxygen and delivered multiple shocks from the automated external defibrillator, the AED. After what seemed to be an eternity, nonstop CPR and a sixth AED shock, the male regained an active heartbeat and shallow breathing. The officers assisted in getting the male into the ambulance and swiftly escorted him to the hospital. Lieutenant Moretti's supervision on scene played a strong role in the outcome of the rescue. He directed the scene and made sure that the officers were switching out while doing CPR. He communicated with the male's wife, Mrs. Hubble here, and helped keep her calm. These officers acted with persistence and professionalism, never giving up on the male when it seemed that all hope was lost. Their ability to quickly assess the situation and take immediate action helped to save the life and preserve the brain function of the husband and father of 2 young children. He would be here, but he is out of town on business, and he gets to do that because of the action of these people before you. And for their swift action, they are being awarded the Mayor's Award of Merit. And again, it's an honor to have Kate here to be able to help present to the officers. On a side note, the officers were able to pay a visit when Mr. Hubble came home. There was a great picture that they put on social media. It was very heartwarming, especially with the children. All right, and if we can have Mr. Reynaldo Beckford, Mr. Adano Tanato, Mr. Manuel Martinez, and Mr. Harold Melender. Okay. The term heroic has become increasingly overused, often attributed to behaviors or actions that are at their best ordinary or expected from contributing members of society. However, on November 10th, 2022, the actions of 4 individuals can be described as nothing less than heroic and were instrumental in preserving the life and safety of others. A subject armed with an AR-15 type rifle entered 254 Virginia Street and within seconds discharged the weapon in the vestibule. Although the subject showed that he was readily capable of causing serious bodily harm or death, unarmed security guard Reynaldo Beckford physically engaged the gunman. The physical struggle ensued, during which additional rounds were discharged from the weapon. This did not deter Mr. Beckford from continuing to physically restrain the subject. While many others would have avoided advancing to an area where there was an active gunfire, security guard Adodo Tonato quickly ran to assist his coworker. Both men were able to then remove the subject from the facility, ending the immediate threat to staff and clients. And when we say removed him from the facility, they were still physically, we watched the video, physically fighting over the assault rifle while getting him out of the facility. Once outside the facility, Mr. Beckford and Mr. Tonato were continued to struggle on the ground with the gunman, who was still armed with the rifle. Maintenance worker Harry Melander and Mr. Martinez and another individual who was unable to be with us, Mr. Joseph Robinson, all came to assist the struggling security guards. Mr. Robinson was able to get the rifle out of the gunman's hands. Mr. Martinez and Mr. Melander secured the weapon until police arrived and were able to take him into custody. Nobody was injured, nobody was shot because of the quick actions of everybody you see standing here. For their incredibly brave actions, they are awarded with the Mayor's Civilian Award of Merit. All right, now if we can have Dawn Pirana and Casey McCrossan. The City of Buffalo wants to sincerely express our gratitude for the amazing work that City Creatures Animal Hospital and staff members, Dawn and Casey, have accomplished with the Buffalo Police Canine Unit. City Creatures Animal Hospital and their staff have donated veterinarian care to the entire canine unit, put together functions where the proceeds supplied the department with new canine, assisted with the purchase of new equipment, and supported the connection the unit made with Spike's Canine that outfitted every canine with a bulletproof vest. City Creatures Animal Hospital harnesses and nurtures their staff's individuals' passions and that have proven to be beneficial to the canine unit. Staff members have donated countless hours to help pull off large-scale events to support the canine unit. Dawn and Casey have directly impacted Buffalo Police Department by taking care of our canines' health and assisting with some of the financial burden that comes with everyday wellness. Their exceptional passion and dedication to the canine unit is impressive, and we value and appreciate the amount of time and effort they put into caring for our canines. For their commitment and service to the City of Buffalo and the Buffalo Police Department's canine unit, City Creatures Animal Hospital is awarded the Mayor's Business Award of Merit.
Our next award is the Distinguished Service Award, which goes to Lieutenant David Mann. If you could please come up. Lieutenant David Mann Jr. has certainly distinguished himself in his service to the Buffalo Police Department. And let me preface, this whole accommodation letter was written by his good friend and a longtime employee of the department, who's now recently retired, Dennis Richards. I know you're in here somewhere. I see you. So thank you. He began his career as a police officer after being sworn in March 28, 1986, and successfully completing the basic police officer's course at the Law Enforcement Training Academy. He patrolled in the former Precinct 3, the old theater district station, out of the former Greyhound bus terminal, which is today the Alleyway Theater. He was often paired with his cousin Patrick, answering calls, patrolling the streets, and walking the beat, often in and around Chippewa Street. Chippewa Street was not the entertainment district we know it to be today. I believe he is the last member of the 2nd Platoon at Precinct 3 who is still on the job. The award shall be presented to the members who have served in the department for a minimum of 10 years and continue to provide distinguished service. Well, Lieutenant Mann has 3 times the minimum requirement, so he's well qualified. Once he became a lieutenant, he was assigned to various precincts and districts, number 10 on the Lower West Side and Precinct 4 on the East Side. Lieutenant Mann ultimately made a career move, which proved to be pretty permanent, transferring to the sex offense squad. Lieutenant Mann has been the supervisor in charge of the Special Victims Unit since 1995. This squad was previously known as the Sex Offense Squad for many years, since its inception in the early 1980s, and the name changed in the recent past, a reflection of the vulnerable victims who are served by this specialized unit. Much like the TV show Law and Order, SVU, the members of this elite squad deal with all manner of criminal conduct, including sexual assaults and abuse crimes, elder abuse, juvenile matters, domestic violence, and missing persons cases. They are often involved in human trafficking and registered sex offender management. For more than 28 years, the squad under Lieutenant Mann's tutelage has investigated and solved countless cases which involve some of the most tenuous and despicable deviant deportment. The sentences meted down from the courts to the defendants in these cases are some of the harshest, and deservingly so, for the commission of the highest of felonious crimes. Much of the success of SVU is due to the quiet, unassuming leadership of Lieutenant Mann. His steady hand has been at the helm all these years with institutional knowledge that is never going to be replaced. In his tenure, a 10-year dream became a reality with the Family Justice Center being created, a single location for victims of domestic violence to receive services under one roof. Buffalo was one of the leading cities in the nation to create such a center, which has not been replicated time and again across the country, Dave serves on numerous committees and panels and is often sought after for his valuable insight, especially when dealing with vulnerable populations. He continues to be an avid runner and involved in the community, even finding time to participate in the Men Who Cook annual fundraiser sponsored by Crisis Services. For this and so much more, I am proud to present David Mann with the Buffalo Police Department's Distinguished Service Award. Next, we're going to present a leadership award to Lieutenant McAllister, who couldn't be with us today, but Chief Jones from the Charlie District is going to read the letter that she wrote of commendation.
Good afternoon. I apologize in advance if my voice seems somewhat compromised and my breathing labored. I'm dealing with some serious sinus issues. However, I could not let that dissuade me from reading aloud a letter that I authored concerning Lieutenant McAllister during my tenure as the Chief of Bravo District. If limited to describing Lieutenant Todd McAllister to one word, stalwart would be the most befitting. A stalwart is defined as an individual who is loyal, reliable, and hardworking, all of which are qualities I have directly observed in Lieutenant McAllister. I was appointed to the position of Chief in September of 2021. Prior to my appointment, although casual acquaintances, our association with each other certainly would not have been construed as being significantly familiar. On the surface, prior familiarity may appear inconsequential. However, with some people, it proves to be paramount regarding their offering of support, transparency, and other essential components that are pivotal to the successful transition of management. From the day I was appointed chief, Lieutenant McAllister has offered his unwavering support, gone above and beyond his job expectations, and offered sound counsel. I recognize that there are many others within the ranks of the department who may also have these same attributes. However, I have no qualm stating that with few exceptions, they do not possess the level of education, professional experience, unsung community involvement, and mental fortitude that Todd McAllister has. Todd McAllister is more than qualified to hold my current position. Some find it difficult to be a subordinate when they are qualified for the rank to whom they report. Lieutenant McAllister's true leadership ability, and an intrinsic characteristic for anyone in leadership, is the ability to be mission-focused regardless of rank or accolades. Lieutenant McAllister has more than proven his desire for the department to complete our mission: integrity, respect, professionalism, excellence. He truly is the embodiment of all of the aforementioned. Within the last 2 years, conditions, resources, and temperaments have drastically changed both departmentally as well as socially. Broward District is tasked with additional duties that were not previously delegated at the district level. As a new chief assigned to a district in which I had never worked nor resided, I had a seemingly insurmountable task ahead of me with little support. Lieutenant McAllister proved to be instrumental in navigating and successfully executing our newfound responsibilities while simultaneously providing an unparalleled level of service to our constituents. A man of his qualifications and experience could have easily rested on his laurels, hoping that the new leadership will falter, perhaps providing an avenue for his own advancement. He didn't, because he is mission-focused and opted to provide me with invaluable information. Without such, I could have potentially failed. A lieutenant of his caliber and entrenched community involvement could easily have been disparaging towards the new leadership. Because he is mission-focused, he opted to encourage me and connected me with the resources and people that he had relationships with due to his long-standing tenure in the district. Lieutenant McAllister wants the best for the department and the community in which he serves, regardless of who is at the helm. Someone observed qualities in me that they felt coincided with departmental goals, and it subsequently led to my current appointment, and I am forever grateful. Without any hesitation, I believe Todd McAllister possesses many of those same qualities, and I look forward to seeing what awaits him in his professional future. For these reasons, Lieutenant Todd McAllister is awarded the Commissioner's Leadership Award. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to the Commissioner's Medal of Commendation. If Lieutenant Autumn Harrison, Officer Walter Skrzyński, Officer Malvernine Crean, and Probationary Officer Michael Spencer could please come up. Thank you. On February 9th, 2023, A District Lieutenant Autumn Harrison and Officer Walter Skrzyński went to check an address in Hamburg for a vehicle that was wanted in a shooting that had happened in Delta District a few hours earlier. Upon arriving at the address in Hamburg, they spotted the vehicle parked in a restaurant parking lot across the street from the address. Lieutenant Harrison and Officer Skrzyński set up surveillance on the vehicle. A short time later, 2 men matching the description of the men involved in the shooting got into the vehicle. Lieutenant Harrison and Officer Skrzyński conducted a felony car stop. The 2 men were separated and detained. Lieutenant Harrison notified Hamburg and Buffalo police for additional assistance to transport 1 suspect and to sit on the vehicle and the house. Officers Crean and Officer Spencer assisted at the scene and transported the suspected shooter to headquarters. A search warrant was issued for the vehicle, and the suspected gun was found inside the vehicle. After being interviewed by homicide detectives, the suspected shooter was arrested and charged with murder in the 2nd degree. For their outstanding police work that led to the arrest of a homicide suspect within hours of the incident, Lieutenant Autumn Harrison, Officer Walter Skrzyński, Officer Malvernine Crean, and Probationary Officer Michael Spencer are awarded a Commissioner's Medal of Commendation. next commendation, Officer Michael Haas, Officer Peter Goretti, and Probationary Officer Jonathan Crawford. If you could please come to the front. Thank you. On December 4th, 2022, did this go off again? I lost the mic. Okay, I'll talk louder, sorry. Officers Michael Haas, Officer Peter Goretti, and Officer Jonathan Crawford responded to an assault call where a male was being stabbed by another male in an apartment building. When officers arrived, the fire department was attempting to enter the department. Officer Goretti moved in front of the firemen to shield them from any danger, in case the suspect were to come to the door with a knife. The suspect answered the door with a bloody hand, deranged look on his face that indicated he was not willing to be taken into custody. Officer Haas moved on the suspect, pinning him with the door. Officer Crawford quickly cuffed the suspect. Officer Goretti heard a male whimpering in pain. The victim had barricaded himself in his room in fear that the suspect would come back to finish him off. Officer Haas and Officer Crawford breached the door and found the victim bleeding from his chest, neck, back, and arms. The Buffalo Fire Department rendered aid to the victim. Officer Goretti observed a bloody steak knife in the apartment and secured it as evidence. The assailant was arrested and charged with assault second. For their outstanding police work that led to the arrest of a violent felon, Officer Michael Haas, Officer Peter Goretti, and Probationary Police Officer Jonathan Crawford are awarded a Commissioner's Medal of Commendation. Yeah, I got a system. All right. Our next Medal of Commendation. If Officer Nico Pasucci, Officer Justin Ayala, Officer Michael Ramos, Officer Steven Zappia, and Officer Brendan Robinson could please come to the front. On October 23, 2022, Delta District Officer Nico Pasucci initiated a traffic stop for failure to stop at a stop sign in the area of Amherst Street and Tonawanda Street. As Officer Pasucci exited the patrol vehicle, the driver of the vehicle exited his vehicle, took a fighting stance, and approached Officer Pasucci. The passenger of the vehicle moved into the driver's seat and drove away. Officer Pasucci was able to take Subject 1 into custody while simultaneously putting out the vehicle information on the fleeing vehicle. Officers Justin Ayala and Michael Ramos observed the vehicle traveling on Niagara Street and then subsequently crashing into a pole on Hamilton. Subject 2 exited the vehicle and fled on foot with what appeared to be a gun in his hand. Officers Ayala and Ramos pursued the subject on foot. They gave him multiple verbal commands to drop the gun and get onto the ground. The subject was warned that he would be tased. He still did not comply. Officer Ramos deployed his taser, striking the subject, who then dropped the gun. Subject 2 was taken into custody. Officer Steven Zappia secured the gun in the scene. Officer Brendan Robinson secured the subject's vehicle until it could be impounded. After performing an inventory search of the vehicle, Officer Robinson found a second firearm in the vehicle, and both guns were loaded polymer P80 with their serial numbers scratched off. The combined arrest resulted in 6 felony charges, 6 misdemeanor charges, and multiple V&T charges. For their outstanding police work that led to the arrest of 2 violent felons, Officer Nico Pasucci, Officer Justin Ayala, Officer Michael Ramos, Officer Steven Zappia, and Officer Brendan Robinson are awarded the Commissioner's Medal of Commendation. Would Officer Daniel Dustin and Officer Nicholas Melligan please approach? Thank you. Officer Daniel Dustin and Officer Nicholas Melligan are being recognized for their outstanding work on a homicide case that occurred in April of 2021, resulting in a guilty conviction of the defendant in April of this year. Just 2 days after the homicide occurred, Officers Dustin and Milligan acted on a bolo put out by homicide detective Mark Constantino. They located the vehicle and a person of interest that were connected to the homicide. The person of interest cooperated with homicide detectives and identified the gunman. He also testified as a witness at the trial, and he also pled to a robbery first charge for his involvement in that incident. On October 1st, 2021, Officers Dustin and Milligan had contact with the homicide suspect's girlfriend and convinced her to be interviewed by homicide. In her statement, she admitted to hearing her boyfriend, the suspect, plan the robbery of the victim, and that he also told her that he murdered him. She also testified in the trial. On October 3rd, 2021, Officers Dustin and Milligan acted on another bolo and picked up the homicide suspect on an indictment warrant for murder. Homicide detective Mark Constantino wrote the following: "The outstanding conclusion of this homicide case would never have happened without the extraordinary efforts of Officer Dustin and Officer Milligan. For their outstanding police work, Officer Daniel Dustin and Officer Nicholas Milligan are awarded the Commissioner's Medal of..." Would Probationary Police Officer Rafael Santiago, Probationary Police Officer Michael Crowley, Officer Christopher Lenhart, and Officer Matthew Schren, I know I said that wrong. Say it again. Schrain, I'm sorry. He told me and I forgot. Schrain. On December 17th, 2022, E-District Probationary Police Officer Rafael Santiago and Michael Crowley were dispatched to an assault call. Upon arriving on the scene, Officers Santiago and Crowley observed the victim being loaded into the back of an ambulance. It became evident that the victim's injuries were much more severe than originally thought. Buffalo firemen were doing chest compressions on the victim in the back of the ambulance. At the time of this incident, both Officer Santiago and Crowley were new officers with only 2 months on the street. They exhibited great composure on what became a very complex and high-stakes call. They contacted their on-duty lieutenant and requested additional officers to the scene to search for possible evidence. Officers Matthew Schren and Christopher Lenhart responded to search the area. They went house to house canvassing the area for any sign of evidence. They noted every house that had a camera and spoke to witnesses that eventually led them to a possible house where the incident occurred. The officers observed footprints in the snow and blood splatter on a doorstep. They noticed more blood splatter and a trail of blood leading upstairs into a multiple dwelling. They cleared the hallway to search for more victims and discovered more evidence of a violent altercation. Homicide detectives were notified and obtained a search warrant, leading to the discovery of further evidence and the apprehension of the suspect the next morning. The investigation led to 2 more suspects who were eventually arrested and charged for a brutal assault that resulted in the death of the victim. This swift actions and ability to think quickly on their feet by probationary police officers Santiago and Crowley, along with the work ethic and effort by Officers Schren and Lenhart, directed what was a near unsolvable case to a close. For their outstanding police work that led to the arrest of 3 violent felons and the solving of a homicide case, Probationary Police Officer Rafael Santiago, Probationary Police Officer Michael Crowley, Officer Christopher Leonard, and Officer Matthew Schren are awarded the Commissioner's Medal of Commendation. Would Detective Jaisha Wilson, Detective Tiffany Garland, Officer Sean Ford, and Officer Sean McCarthy please come up? Thank you. On April 30th, 2023, a 50-year-old suspect choked, beat, and sexually assaulted a 74-year-old victim. Detective Jaisha Wilson and Detective Tiffany Garland of the Special Victims Unit responded to Erie County Medical Center and took a statement from the victim. They then went to the scene of the assault, briefed the crime scene unit, and continued their investigation. Later that day, they took a statement from the suspect's girlfriend. Based on the detective's investigation, a bolo was created for the suspect. He was apprehended a short time later by Officer Sean Ford and Officer Sean McCarthy of B District. He was charged with rape in the first degree and assault in the second degree. In consultation with the District Attorney's Office, the detective's swift response, thorough investigation, and communication with patrol led to the arrest of the suspect that same day. Though new to the unit and confronted with the facts of an unspeakable crime, the detectives exhibited the highest level of professionalism. For their outstanding work in apprehending a rape suspect within hours of the crime, Detective Jaisha Wilson, Detective Tiffany Garland, Officer Sean Ford, and Officer Sean McCarthy are awarded the Commissioner's Medal of Merit. Would Detective Andrew Whiteford, Detective James McMahon, and Detective John Weber please come up? On April 14th, 2023, a severely autistic male that is well known to the community was viciously attacked by another male without reason or provocation. The assailant attacked the victim using his fists and a 2x4, knocking the victim down several times and stripping him of his clothing. The victim was found unconscious the next morning. He had suffered a broken jaw, lacerations, and injuries to the head. District Detective Andrew Whiteford began an investigation and was assisted by Special Victims Unit Detectives James McMahon and John Weber. Over the next 7 days, the detectives and many other members of the department worked tirelessly to complete the investigation, and on April 21st, the suspect was arrested and charged with a B felony assault. For their outstanding police work that resulted in the arrest of a violent felon, Detective Andrew Whiteford, Detective James McMahon, and Detective John Weber are awarded the Commissioner's Medal of Merit. Okay, we're moving on to our last award. This is the De-escalation award. Just to explain, this award is presented to those members of the department who exhibit compassion, empathy, and patience to de-escalate emotionally charged situations, resulting in a peaceful outcome. And, can Officer Peter Goretti and Probationary Officer Jonathan Crawford please come up? On November 27th, 2022, Officers Peter Goretti and Officer Jonathan Crawford responded to a suicide threats call. When they entered the apartment, a male was holding a knife in his hand in his lap. The subject moved the knife to his throat, stating he was going to kill himself by stabbing himself in the face and throat, and that it was 9/11's problem now. Officer Goretti, with his strong ability to maintain situational awareness to control this quickly evolving scene, told Officer Crawford to pull his taser and get distance from the subject. The small, confined apartment space made it difficult to create that distance. Officer Goretti took out his firearm in case the male lunged towards them with the knife. He started to speak to the male in a calm voice, trying to coerce him to drop the knife. He continued to speak positively to the male and eventually convinced him to drop the knife. Officer Goretti secured the knife, and Officer Crawford moved the male to a safe location in the department and called for an ambulance to take the male for a mental health treatment. The officer's outstanding field training skills and restraint during this very stressful situation kept the male safe from self-inflicted wounds or worse, death. For their compassion and patience, Officer Peter Goretti and Probationary Officer Jonathan Crawford are awarded the department's De-escalation award.
I think that's all the awards today, but as I said in the beginning, this is just a sampling of some of the just tremendous work that our department and our fine civilians do on a regular day. I mean, we heard of the first responders, officers working as first responders and saving the life of someone. We heard of our brave security officers doing a phenomenal job in disarming an armed person. The city creatures folks, the fine work that you do every day. Honoring our distinguished service of Lieutenant David Mann and the leadership of Lieutenant Todd McAllister. The quick arrest of a murder suspect, a stabbing suspect arrested, a great gun arrest, homicide suspect arrested, another one with homicide suspects arrested, rape and assault arrest, vicious assault of a vulnerable person, de-escalation of a very mentally challenged person. So like I said, this is just a small sampling of what our fine officers do on a regular basis. This is what we signed up for, don't get me wrong, but it is great when we have the opportunity to really celebrate and honor the folks of our department. So I just want to give everybody a great round of applause and thank them for their hard work. And with that, I'd like to call up the Reverend Garney Davis for the closing prayer.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity to recognize and honor the men and women who put their lives on the line. As we honor them, we pray, God, that you continue to protect them, that your guardian angels be encamped around about them. We pray, oh God, that you protect their families, that your peace, Lord, would envelop them, that you will continue to give them strength and endurance for the journey. These things we ask in the name above all names. Amen.